They threw you to the bottom like scraps tossed to the floor. But the floor has teeth. Last place is where the masks come off, where silence roars louder than their applause. You sat there, watching, bleeding, but not broken. They laughed because they thought you were finished. They clapped because they thought they won, but what they really did was lock themselves inside a circus where the clown is no longer laughing. Last place isn't a punishment. It's a laboratory. It's where monsters are engineered in the dark. You don't build greatness in the spotlight. You build it in the shadows, where no one bothers to look. That's where you stitched your rage into armor. That's where you sharpened your hunger into knives. They thought exile would crush you, instead it made you unrecognizable. They don't realize yet, they built the very thing that will haunt them. The bottom strips you naked of illusions. No applause, no cheerleaders, no comfort. Just the raw taste of rejection and the constant echo of being dismissed. And in that silence, something awakens. A voice that doesn't whisper sweet lies. It screams war cries. Every doubt carved deeper scars. Every insult welded tighter steel. The same darkness they feared in you, it learned to breathe down there. It learned to smile with blood still dripping. You see, the last spot is a coffin only for the weak. For you it was ignition, a buried bomb. The humiliation became jet fuel, and every sneer was a match. You weren't destroyed, you were detonated. That's the secret they'll never admit. When they pushed you to the edge, they handed you the sharpest blade in existence. Nothing left to lose, nothing left to fear. Only fire, only chaos, only you. And when you rise, you don't crawl back politely. You don't ask for a seat. You break the table, scatter the cards, and laugh in their faces. Because while they wasted years chasing applause, you spent years sculpting madness into mastery. That's why they're choking now, chasing second place like rats. They don't understand the rules changed. You're not competing, you're erasing. And every step you take feels like thunder cracking open their illusion. So remember this. The bottom isn't where they buried you, it's where you planted yourself. And roots grown in darkness twist into something unstoppable. They'll chase recognition, and you'll chase nothing but transformation. That's why they always look over their shoulders, sweating, terrified, asking one question that eats them alive. How did the one we left behind get so far ahead? Rage is a currency no one dares to trade, except you. They tossed humiliation at you like scraps, thinking it would rot your insides. Instead, you stored it, hoarded it, turned every sneer into a coin of fury. While they were spending validation like fools at a casino, you were stacking towers of silence. Rage, when caged, becomes gold. Rage, when focused, becomes nuclear. That's the secret. They thought they broke you. They were just paying you. Every time they dismissed your name, you recorded it like a debt. Every time they smirked, you carved it into memory like a ledger. Those debts don't vanish, they compound. You learned to smile while they laughed. You learned to nod while they spat. They saw calm, but inside, interest was piling up. Rage doesn't shout. It waits, it stalks, it collects. And when it's finally cashed in, no empire survives the bill. Pain is supposed to weaken, but not yours. Yours calcified into steel veins. They gave you scraps of shame, but you refined them into diamonds of obsession. That's why their victories feel empty now. They can't figure out why the crown on their head feels so fragile. It's because your shadow is standing taller than their throne. They don't know it yet, but their cheers have already turned into screams inside your silence. The thing about rage is, it doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need witnesses. It only needs time. While they were chasing the applause, you were rehearsing revenge in your bloodstream. While they were celebrating, you were sculpting patience sharp enough to cut through steel. Rage grows patient when it's ignored, and the patient beast is always the deadliest. They thought you were quiet because you were weak. No, you were quiet because you were loading. They don't fear you because you were last. They fear you because last taught you hunger no banquet could cure. You didn't just eat pain, you feasted on it. You swallowed it whole until it rewired your biology, until rage became oxygen, until humiliation became fuel. They thought last place meant death, but last place meant clarity. And clarity is the sharpest weapon in a world full of blind men begging for applause. Now look at them, running, sweating, gasping, chasing second place like it matters. But second is a cage. Second is slavery. They've mistaken competition for progress. You don't compete, you consume. And every ounce of rage they gave you is now their undoing. Because when the bill comes due, when you finally decide to cash in that silence, their entire world will crack like glass beneath your grip. They chased applause like children chasing balloons. But you weren't chasing balloons, you were chasing blood. Their oxygen was validation, yours was vengeance. They wanted hands clapping, you wanted throats tightening. That's the split, the fracture, the scar in the system. Two species pretending to play the same game. They thought you were harmless, too quiet, too small. But predators don't howl at the pack. They wait in silence, jaws locked, eyes glowing in the dark. While they competed for trophies, you were studying their weaknesses. Every smile they flashed was a crack. Every word they spoke was a tell. They wanted to be seen, you wanted to see through them. And that's the difference. They collect gold stars like children in school. You collected secrets, patterns, strategies. When they looked in mirrors, they saw winners. When you looked at them, you saw prey. And prey always runs. Always. Competition is their drug. Survival is your bloodstream. They burn out sprinting after approval, and you rise by conserving silence. They can't understand it. Why you don't join the race. Why you don't beg for claps. It terrifies them. Because deep down, they know applause dies in seconds. But fear? Fear echoes forever. And you didn't want their cheers. You wanted their nightmares. The kind that wake them up sweating, whispering your name in the dark. They chased comfort, you studied chaos. They celebrated second place, you dismantled the scoreboard. That's why they'll never catch you. Because while they're chasing spots, you're chasing power. Raw, unfiltered, unshakable power. They want recognition, you want dominance. They want headlines, you want silence so heavy it crushes their lungs. And when the game flips, recognition becomes worthless. But dominance? Dominance rewrites history. Here's the secret no one dares admit. Wolves don't chase sheep. Wolves hunt them. That's the role you've stepped into. That's why you don't need to prove anything to them anymore. Because you're not even in the same league. They're running laps around illusions. You're dismantling the track. You're the rupture in their system, the glitch in their perfect little race. They don't know it yet. but second place is already their tomb. So watch them scramble, watch them pant, chase, sweat, beg. It's pathetic. They can't understand why your silence is louder than their screams. They don't get that predators don't chase recognition, they chase inevitability. And inevitability doesn't lose, it doesn't break, it doesn't negotiate, it swallows. That's why you don't just run faster, you end the race. And the moment they realize it will be the moment their legs finally give out. Their comfort is their leash. Your discomfort is your blade. They live inside warm rooms, padded with applause, dripping with fake security. You've lived in cold silence, where nothing is promised, where every breath feels like war. That's why they panic at the first crack of thunder. That's why you grin when the storm comes. Comfort makes them fragile. Chaos makes you lethal. And in this world, fragility is death. They built cages out of comfort and locked themselves inside. Every trophy, every handshake, every hollow smile, all of it, chains dressed as rewards. But you bled outside those cages. You learned to run barefoot across fire. You learned to breathe through the chokehold of rejection. And because of that, you don't crumble when reality breaks. You break reality. Their leash drags them down. Your blade cuts you free. Psychological warfare isn't about strength. It's about nerves. It's about who can keep their hands steady when the world tilts sideways. They crumble because they've never seen hunger. You thrive because hunger carved you. They beg for shortcuts when the ground splits. You smile and keep walking. That's the difference. They want comfort to protect them. You want discomfort to sharpen you. And only one of those survives the war. Watch how they collapse when the silence hits. No likes, no claps, no noise to validate their worth. Their eyes dart, their hands tremble, their masks slip. But you? Silence is your arena. You built yourself in it. Every second without applause was training. Every night without recognition was preparation. Their panic is your playground. Their fear is your crown. That's the psychological edge. They can't breathe where you learn to live. They'll try to mirror your strength. They'll copy your moves. They'll pretend to know the hunger you embody. But when it's midnight and the walls start whispering, that's when truth surfaces. They'll shake. They'll beg. They'll run. And you'll still be standing there, smiling like the madness in your veins is enough to keep you warm. That's psychological warfare. Your presence alone is their collapse. And when they realize it, it'll already be too late. They'll see you don't just fight battles, you become battles. Every scar on you is a warning. Every silence around you is a trap. Their comfort betrayed them. Your discomfort transformed you. That's why when the war starts, you don't flinch. You don't blink. You don't move. You are the war. And they'll never be ready to fight someone who's already lost everything, except the will to destroy. Last place isn't the end. It's the furnace. They thought burying you meant silence. But silence doesn't kill. It forges. Down there in the dust, in the filth, in the shadows no spotlight ever touches, you started to change. Bones hardened, nerves rewired, hunger grew fangs. They thought last meant forgotten. No, last meant invisible. And the invisible one is always the most dangerous. Because no one is watching until it's too late. The furnace doesn't make you pretty. It makes you unrecognizable. The old you burned away. The weak you melted into nothing. What walked out of that fire wasn't a victim. It was a weapon. Every failure became fuel. Every scar became armor. They'll never understand this transformation because they never had to burn alive. You did. And that's why you'll never break again. The fire already took everything soft from you. They climb ladders built by other hands. They step on each other for inches. But you built your own staircase in the dark. Every insult was a brick. Every betrayal a step. Every night you were overlooked, another rung. That's why you don't climb like them. You rise. And when you rise, you don't stop where they stop. You keep going until ladders look like toys. And their so-called heights look like crawl. This awakening isn't gentle. It's violent. It tears through your chest, rips open your veins, and whispers truths no one wants to hear. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when your lungs are begging for air, when your fists are bleeding from clawing at walls, when your heart is pounding like it's trying to escape your ribcage. That's when the real you emerges. That's when the monster finally takes the throne inside your skull. They still think last place is humiliation. They'll never grasp that last place is freedom. No one watching, no one expecting, no pressure to perform, just silence, just space, just the raw void where you can experiment, fail, and rebuild without eyes judging you. That's the advantage they'll never have, the advantage of obscurity. They wasted their strength in the spotlight, you multiplied yours in the dark. And now every scar is a key, every cut is a code. You don't walk the same anymore. You stalk. You don't breathe the same. You devour air like it owes you something. This awakening is permanent. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unlearn what the fire taught you. And when they come chasing second, sweating and desperate, they'll find you standing in the smoke, already leagues beyond, untouchable, unstoppable. Oh, they called you worthless until you made their worth look fragile. That's the punchline they can't laugh at. They thought mocking you would erase you, but it only etched your name deeper into the walls of their fear. Every insult they hurled became a stone in your crown. Not the kind you wear to be adored, the kind you wear to remind the world that pain itself bowed before you. They can't touch that. They can't even look at it without choking. The monster's crown isn't polished gold. It's rust, it's blood, it's scars welded together into something indestructible. They polish their trophies for approval. You polish your wounds until they gleam like weapons. That's the difference. Their crowns break under pressure. Yours was built from pressure. That's why you don't need their validation anymore. You don't need their applause. The crown already sits heavy on your head, made from everything they tried to bury you with. They see you now and it terrifies them. Not because you're loud, not because you're desperate, but because you're calm. Because the fire in your eyes isn't for show, it's for war. They recognize it, even if they don't admit it. The same people who laughed at you are now whispering in panic. They're choking on the truth. Their crowns mean nothing in the presence of yours. And the worst part? They know they built it. You don't sit at their table. You flip it. Plates crash, glasses shatter, and silence fills the air. That silence is louder than any speech. Because they know, deep down, they're dining with something untamed, something that doesn't belong in their hierarchy. You're not waiting for permission. You're not waiting for recognition. You wear the monster's crown like a scar, carved into your skull, and that scar commands more fear than their polished gold ever could. Here's what terrifies them most. You don't want what they want. They chased thrones like addicts. You turned your back on thrones and became one. They're still competing for approval. You're not competing at all. You exist as the reminder that dominance isn't given, it's taken. And once it's taken, it can't be undone. Their rules don't apply to you anymore. Their scoreboard is ashes at your feet. That's why they'll always chase while you remain untouchable. And when their illusions finally collapse, they'll look up and see it. The crown they mocked you for never having. Heavy, terrifying, built from fire and rage and silence. The monster's crown. They'll realize too late that they can't copy it, can't steal it, can't earn it. Because it's not made of jewels, it's made of scars. And scars are only carved into those who survived hell without asking for mercy. That's why it's yours, and yours alone. They put you last, but last became the throne. That's the paradox they choke on at night. They thought pushing you down would erase you, but it only gave you leverage. Every floor they forced you onto became a launch pad. Every dismissal became a step higher. They can't process it. The one they laughed at, the one they ignored, the one they buried, now stands above them, smiling like the game was always rigged in your favor. Second place is their prison. They chase it endlessly, desperate, sweating, clinging to scraps of recognition. But second is still beneath you, because you're not in their race anymore. You tore the track apart. While they pant and stumble in circles, you've already disappeared over horizons they can't even imagine. They thought they were running toward glory. They were only running into your shadow, and shadows stretch forever. The scoreboard they worshipped is ashes now. Numbers, ranks, titles, all worthless in the face of raw transformation. They can't understand why their victories feel so hollow. It's because every cheer they earned dies in seconds, but every scar you carry speaks for eternity. They wanted applause. You became apocalypse. They wanted medals. You became myth. And myths don't compete, they consume. Here's the brutal truth. They didn't underestimate you. They created you. Every time they spat your name, every time they dismissed your worth, every time they laughed while you starved, they were chiseling a monster. They don't see it yet, but their fingerprints are all over your crown. The throne they thought you'd never touch, it's built from their mockery, their betrayal, their doubt. That's the joke. That's the irony. That's the nightmare. And now when you enter a room, silence falls. Not respect, not admiration, something deeper, something primal, fear disguised as awe. They see in your eyes what they never wanted to face, the cost of making someone invisible. You don't need to scream. You don't need to prove. You don't need to ask. Your existence itself is the answer, and the answer cuts sharper than any blade. You were always inevitable. So let them chase second. Let them scramble for crowns that break under pressure. You've already ascended into a realm they'll never touch. You don't wear recognition. You wear inevitability. You don't chase applause. You chase silence heavy enough to crush them. And in that silence, in that chaos, in that throne carved from last place, you stand eternal, untouchable. The one they tried to bury, now the one they'll never escape.